Good morning. Once again, it's Craig from ICT, and today we're going to go over on replacing the drive motor for the TAO-A, TAO-V, and LX7 bill acceptors. We previously went over on changing the stacker motor. That is the motor that most common is going to fail in these units. The drive motor doesn't usually go bad, but I have seen occasions where it does. It's just a very lower percentage of the time. A word of note, if you suspect that your drive motor is damaged or not working correctly, with these units, the belt roller system is in the cache box and not in the main unit assembly as it would be, for example, the A6 or PA7. So before you change the motor, try changing out the cache box for one you know that is good in operation, just to rule that out. 9 times out of 10 I've seen people send in units that are reported bad drive motor, but it ends up being the cache box itself. And the drive motor is absolutely fine. There's a belt that gets jammed up in the box, possibly, and that's what makes you think it's a drive motor, because it does make a angry, grinding, popping noise that you think it's a stripped gear on a motor, but is actually the rollers themselves, and the motor is just timing out. But it's still fine. So, without further ado, let me switch over to my lower camera and give you guys a better view of what we're going to be doing today. Let's get these cameras set up a little better here. Alright, so the TAO LX7 drive motor, it does not have as an elaborate gearing system as the stacker motor. The gears in this motor assembly are actually going to be inside the TAO itself, which we will go over shortly. So just as before, you can set the cache box off to the side for now. It's not going to be needed. Remove the CPU cover and the front bezel with the 4 screws. Set those aside. And then once again, to remove the main board, you have your lower screw, left, right, and the top screw here. As you take out your screws and such, I usually use the CPU cover to hold all your screws together. Keeps them from rolling. It's already off anyway. Why not make use of it? So with those 4 screws out, your board will come out, and once again, it will be a little bound up because of all the harnesses. So starting from the right side here, undo your stacker motor lead, unhook your LED harness from the main housings, gives you more slack. Unplug that flat cable and your drive motor lead, and once again the LED harness I just leave connected and remove that completely together as one unit. Set that to the side. So once again, we're left with the main base with the 2 motors. We've already gone over the stacker motor here, so now we're going to be looking at the drive motor. Now, learned from the last recording session to turn on the LED so we can see a bit better inside the housing as well as the autofocus. So this is the drive motor. To get this out easily, this raster can be removed, which you might have to, because once again there is that little cable clips that it's really hard to get in there with fingers, even if you have really tiny fingers. Most people I know are going to have larger fingers, such as myself, so that can easily be removed by just getting a pair of tweezers or a flat head screwdriver, and from where it, I'll demonstrate this here for you. So where it actually comes off the shaft there, if you could just work it loose, and it'll come off. After you're done, remember to push this back onto that post. The raster wheel is how the TAO, or is one of the ways that the TAO determines how fast the drive motor is going, therefore how far the bill has been pulled in, etc., etc. So the raster is pretty important. But with that out, you're now exposed to those cable hooks. So get one of these out. So as you can see, I've already got that lower one off. There's just a little like U-hook that you just hook them under. To get this next one off, that's why we had to remove that raster, because it's really hard to get your fingers in there. Once you have that undone from that hook, you can see it's completely isolated and the motor is theoretically free. But like I mentioned before, the drive motor has its own different gearbox, which is in the side of the TAO. So I'll try and go over this step by step. Depending on your TAO, there will be either three Phillips screws. There may be one on the inside for some of our older units. Either way is still acceptable. It's just the newer style doesn't have a screw here anymore. These smaller screws, let's see, I usually use a 00 screwdriver. They are a bit smaller than the normal screws that secure the main board and the rest of the parts in the unit. So it will fit, but I've just had better success with not stripping the screws with a 00. All right. With those screws off, you can basically lift that cover off and you'll see a bunch of intimidating gears. It's really simple. You might dump these out and forget which orientation they go in, but I will go over those on how to put those back properly. Really, you don't need to remove any of these because the two screws that we're after are right next to that motor. These screws definitely are going to be 00. Do not try using a normal screwdriver on these. They will strip and you'll be in a whole bunch of hurt because you can't get your motor out. So use a smaller screwdriver on these. As you can see, these screws are pretty tiny, so you might lose them. Be careful with these. Our office in Fremont does not have these style screws in bulk, so it might be a wait if you need them, so try not to lose them if you can help it. With that second screw out, there's a little track that the motor rests in. So once those screws are out, you can just lift the motor straight out of that track. Let's get our new motor here. And installation is basically this opposite of reverse. I usually don't like to remove all these and just keep your thumb there holding the all together, but sometimes it happens. Oh no, all the gears came out. Darn. So to put them back the correct orientation, I put the pins in their holes. And this one would be the first to go down. Facing in as such. The second one to go down. Would go down in as such. The third one, which is the bit reinforced one, that goes down in there like that. And then lastly, the one that has a bit of a slot on it, that goes down right there. So you can just give it a little spin, and as long as it spins freely, you're good. So let's go ahead and get the motor back in there. So like I said, mentioned previously, there's a little slot that the motor will just push into. And then on the other side, are where you're going to have your screw holes. So those two tiny screws that we took out before. I'm going to go ahead and put those back and get the motor secure. And when you secure these, you don't want to really use a lot of torque. You're not trying to hold the building in place, you're just keeping the motor in position. Alright, and once again we're back down to these little cable hooks at the bottom, so I'll do one. Get it hooked under as such. Just go straight across. Make sure you go in front of the white flat cable in there. It doubles as a retention for that cable to keep all the slack kind of tucked down. But yeah, once you get that in there, it'll basically rest across the white flat cable. Alright, let's go ahead and get the gear cover back on. Keep your gears from coming out. Alright, with those 3 screws back, or 4, depending if you have an older model, now's the time that you would basically put back the raster. So, let's see. All you would do is just get it lined up and just push it on. Just make sure it's not bound up or anything, spins freely. As long as it does that, you're good. Right. From here, we can start plugging stuff back in for the internals. So, let's start with your new drive motor you just installed with the flat cable. You're installing these flat cables, be sure it doesn't twist and it just folds in on itself. You can reverse the polarity on that and the board will basically send its LED voltage of 5 volts to ground and it might short out your LED board. So, let's see if I can point that out in this example. Focus. So as you can see, the cable will just kind of lay back and fold naturally. If there's a twist in it, you don't want that twist because you're basically going to be reversing the polarity on the lower boards, which is bad. That will definitely cause a problem. Alright, tuck in your LED harness on the side. And once again, since it's a new motor, the wires may not be perfect, just a little bit of persuasion, and ultimately your board will be sitting flat, which is optimal. So for these case screws, switch back to your normal Phillips. And you would continue to secure the rest of these screws. As well as all your bezel screws. I'm skipping from for some time purposes, but when you assemble yours, you want to be sure all your screws are back together. So let's get this powered up. And your motors are sounding great. Our next session, we'll probably go over how to change the complete main housing in the TAOs or LX7s, which will build on the removal of both of the motors. And we'll go over how to change all those internal parts that are required if you change the main base. Until then, have a great day.